So I'm forced by necessity to make an executive decision, and that is that I am going from buying two figures a month to buying one figure a month, cutting my purchasing in half. The reason is I can't handle the boxes anymore. It's the accumulation is killing me. Um, I might do a video on that later. I still have a lot of room in my house. I'm I have not used the attic at all, and I will never use the garage. But the storage space I have in the basement is really getting filled up with boxes. So that means if I want to do content, I'll have to revisit some figures and talk about other things. So the thing I wanted to talk about today is Bandai's dynamic classics and their full what is it full action line, which they were the Mazinger Z came out in 2016, the first dynamic classic, and it was a redesign of GX01. And so that's kind of when I got into. I'd been collecting a little bit before that, but I was super into the dynamic classics and then the full action. So the dynamic classics include Mazinger Z, Great Mazinger, Getter 1, Grendizer, let's see, Getter 2 and Getter 3. So what do all of these have in common? They're all from Toei, Toei animation. And they were doing a lot of the giant mecha in the 70s and some in the 80s. And I was hoping that they were going to take it a little bit further because there's other ones, Steel Jeeg, Guy King, that they didn't create into DC direct dynamic classics. So the dynamic classics, they don't have any now. Mazinger Z doesn't transform anyway. In fact, I don't know. Well, the getters would be combiners, but they do none of that. So they're trying to stay as close to anime accurate as possible, and they have very simple design. Not and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. And I really liked this line, and I wish they had continued it, but I don't believe they've had one since 2020. They did a redesign of, so you can remove this, you can look inside, and also it gives further articulation. Now, you would replace this with a less anime accurate, but another piece that gives more leg movement. So that's the dynamic classics. And then they started doing their full action, and full action was pretty insane. Let's take a look. I'm on my computer, so it started with Voltus V, Diturn 3, Deimos, Zambot. Let's see, Combattler 5, Ideon, and it says that full action subline beginning with Voltus V, the FA subline sacrifices transformation and combination gimmicks in favor of anime accurate proportions and dynamic articulation. So this is Tosho Daimos, which would transform into a truck, but this one does not transform. Now the Bandai did have a transform, but I would say not only are they more anime accurate, but they're also sturdier, because with the transformation, you had a lot of areas in there that were empty, so that pieces could be moved here and there. And so, that's the thing is, if one of the things I've thought about is if you stepped on this figure, yeah, I wouldn't suggest doing it, but you might not do any damage at all, whereas you might crush the transforming robot. So the full action has way more. So the arms will swing out. You could bring them together. The elbow joints. I mean, that's some crazy. You compare that to, little slightly over 90 degrees with the dynamic classics. So you could do the, look at this. There we go. He's practically kicking himself in the back of the head. And all of these figures have the exact same articulation. So we could open, let's see, open these panels up, and the leg can swing way out like that, swing way forward like that, do all sorts of dramatic. But the one that really, really impresses is you could just, you could have him doing some absolutely insane poses. So that's the FA. Now it looks a little silly because it's all, his body's kind of, moving out like that. But you could have some pretty crazy poses. The dynamic classics couldn't do anything even close to that. So now, what do the full action figures have in common? The full action figures are all from, let's see, they're all from Sunrise Animation, who again were doing a lot of giant mecha back in the 70s and 80s. Besides these figures, they also, the one I was really hoping that they would do, but they didn't do, is Raydeen. And the reason I wanted Raydeen is because I have, that's the other Shogun warrior I have other than Great Mazinger, is the Great Raydeen, although I don't think he's called Raydeen. Let's see, they also had Deltanius, which was not produced into a full action. Invincible Robo Trider G7. They did do Ideon. And then you're getting into, kind of the mid 80s when they were moving away from just that kind of anime, that kind of mecha anime. They still did mecha anime, but they were kind of doing maybe more in the line of, say, oh gosh, I can't think of it now. More of like kind of space science fiction rather than just a robot or combining or whatever. But that's kind of what these are, which is they have no combining, no transformation. They're just meant to be rock solid and very sturdy and anime accurate. And that's why I love these, because I'm a shelf collector and I don't tend to pose these into dramatic poses or have them transformed or whatever. They're just kind of there looking like they would look in the anime. So I didn't really care that they didn't have in fact, I would say I preferred the fact that they were not transforming or anything like that. Now the last full action was Ideon in 2020. So there hasn't been a dynamic classic, or at least a new one. There have been some remakes since 2020. So 4 years ago, going on 4 years ago. So I guess they're done with that. There's still Solar Chogokin, plenty of Solar Chogokin figures coming out, but I was collecting every single one of these, and I certainly don't collect every Solar Chogokin, but I really like this line. I wish they'd continued it. Maybe someday they'll pick it up and do some of the other ones like Brave Raydeen. But that's kind of an introduction to Bandai's Dynamic Classics and Full Action, a line that I really, really enjoyed.